I'm going to go fast because I already spent 5 minutes doing a video, and then I realized it wasn't even recording. So this made me really mad. But we're going to go, and I'm going to do one practice question with what we did today in class with the prime factorization tree to find the absolute most common factor, or the absolute highest or greatest common factor. So we're going to start with the number 18. So I do 18, and then we're going to do 30. So we're going to start with 18, and what you got to do is start with two factors that equal 18. It could be any two, as long as they equal 18. It could be, you don't want to do 1 and 18 because you would just kind of be repeating yourself, but you could do 2 and 9, you could do 3 and 6. Either one of those would get you the same answer. So I'm going to do 2 and 9. And then you ask yourself, it's called prime factorization, which one of these numbers is prime? If it is, you can circle it, and I said in class, it's kind of like it cashes out, it's done. So I look at 2 and I say, is it prime? And I would say yes, I'm going to circle it because the only thing that equals it is 1 in itself. Now 9, that's not true because it has two other factors that equal it, which would be 3 and 3. Now I look at those two 3s and I say, can I break you down smaller? Without being, just 1 in itself, and I can't. The only thing that equals 3 is 1 and 3. So now those are both cashed out, and 18 is completely done. It's factorized out. So now I look at 30, do the same thing. Again, I can use 2 times 15, 3 times 10, or 5 times 6. I'm going to go with 3 times 10. 3, I'm going to circle because it's prime. Can't make it any lower. And then I'm going to go with 10, which is 2 and 5. 2 times 5 gives me 10. Again, I ask myself, are those prime numbers? Yes, they are. Then I got to try to find my matches. Now, you might be asked on your homework tonight to write it as a product of primes. That would look like this. It would say 2 times 3 times 3. Again, I'm just taking those prime numbers and write them as a multiplication problem. I'm going to do the same thing over here. So I would have 2 times 3 times 5. And now at this point, sometimes I know in your homework they ask you to make a chart. I don't want you to do that. You can just cross them out like we've been doing. I see, do I have any matches? Yes, I have a 2 and a 2. So I write that number up here. Then I also have a 3 with a 3, so I write that number up in a multiplication problem. Now, I don't have another 3 to make a match, and I don't have another 5 to make a match. So now I multiply these two numbers together to get its product, and it is 6. 6 would be the greatest common factor, and this is what we practiced a lot with today. And remember, we found some factors of like greatest common factor like 18 when we thought it was going to be 9 was the highest. So this was kind of a great way to know for sure it is the greatest common factor. So let's take a look at our homework from last night. The vocabulary, you can look back at your notes to get those answers in your notebook. But let's take a look at 54 and 72. Okay, so I look at 54 and it says complete a prime factorization and write it as a product of primes. It's kind of down here. Okay, part A. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to write 54 and do the factor tree. So I have 9 and 6, which give me 54. Those are not prime. I can break that 9 down to 3 and 3. 6 can be broken down to 2 and 3, and those are all prime numbers. So if I was writing it as a product of primes, I would write it as 2 times 3 times 3 times 3. Then they also ask you to do 72. So I would write 72. I'd write what equals 72. You could do 12 times 6 or 9 times 8. 9 would factor down to 3 times 3, and those are prime numbers. And 8 would factor down to 2 and 4. But 4 is not prime, so I break it down more, 2 and 2. Now if I write this as a product of primes, like B says, I'd write it as 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. I think I got all my numbers. Let me check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now C says put the prime factors of 54 and, oh, my phone is lighting up like crazy. But anyway, everyone wants this video. I'm trying my best. I promise you guys. I promise. So C says write it in a table. Don't worry about doing that. We don't do that. We write them. You can either cross them off like we were doing as matches in class, or you can kind of connect them like I just did before. So if I connected them, I'd have a 2 and a 2. So I can write 2 times. I have a 3 and this 3. And then I have another 3 and 3. Again, this 3 doesn't have a match over here. And this 2 doesn't have another 2 over here to match it with. Or that 2 does not have a 2 over here. Now I work it out. 2 times 3 is 6. And 6 times 3 is 18. That 18 is the greatest common factor between those two numbers. The absolute greatest. So, anyway, I hope that helps you a little bit. With tonight's homework, we did some practice problems right now. There was at least 2 right here. And that's it. Common multiples, we talked about that in class in our notes. Determined the least common multiple for each group of numbers. Remember, multiples are when you count by that number. So I'm going to be counting by 4. So I would say 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. And I would go maybe all the way up to maybe 4 times 10. Actually, you probably need to at least go past 4 times 14 to find a common number, a least common number. Because you have 14 in that list. So you would start, and you would need to keep going counting by 4s until you find some matches between these 3 numbers. So I would do 8, 8, 16, 24, 32, and so on. Then you start with 14, 28. What would be 14 times 3? It would be 42, I think. And keep on going until you find a match. Let's see if I can figure this out. 14 times 3. Let me just double check that. Yep. And then you could maybe do 14 times 4. That would be 56. Wow. So I know it would be 42, then 56. 56 might work because I know 8 times 7 gives me 56. So if I keep counting, I had 40, 48. There's my 56 for my 8. Now if I count by 4s, will I get 56? Well, you'd have to just kind of keep on going. So you'd have 24, 28, 32, 36, 40, 44, 48, 52, 56. Look, we have a match, guys. The least common multiple between 4, 8, and 14 was 56. There we go. So you got one of your answers right there. The bottom in the review, you should know how to do this. Oh, look right here. This is a rhombus, so don't think it's cutting it up into a triangle. It's a rhombus, so you do base times height. Don't forget for your trapezoid, it's just like a triangle, but you do 1/2. Then you do base plus base times the height. Don't forget about that half. You guys like to forget that. All right, you have a great night. And I'm so sorry for my little bus buddies that got, stuck here for so long, but we got to watch that parade and get lots of candy. So be ready tomorrow, and I'll see ya. Have a great night. Bye-bye.